All right. In 1868, Custer took over command of another 7th Cavalry. And he really felt he needed a victory somewhere to really get him back in the spotlight. And that victory he needed happened at Washita, Oklahoma. That's on your sheet there. Washita, Oklahoma. This, you probably need to be writing this down. I mean, what would you think? Did you do that?
I didn't get like a...
No, it's just the payment from yesterday's.
Well, you got to figure it out because you're going to have a test on it.
So,
Yes?
I don't know that that's recorded.
You don't think it is?
No.
What?
Is there a red dot? Is there a
Just
packet?
use the one from yesterday.
Yeah, it's recording.
Is it?
And I brought your folder down.
The problem you have is the red dot is in the red flag up there.
That was what it was.
Okay? Anyway, he receives this victory at Washita, Oklahoma. And what he did is he attacked the village of Cheyenne Chief Black Kettle. And as he stormed the village, he yelled to his men, quote, "We caught 'em napping, boys." So there was a Cheyenne Chief Black Kettle and his particular tribe that were camped out, and Custer attacked him. And basically they just slaughtered the village. They killed a lot of warriors, but they also killed a lot of innocent women and children as well. In addition to that slaughter, they slaughtered 800 ponies that belonged to the Cheyenne, and another 800 they captured and took. So they had 1,600 ponies there, the Cheyenne did, at that particular village at Washita. And Custer made a sneak attack, killing many, many Cheyenne warriors and killing several innocent women and children. Now, some of the Cheyenne Indians fled during this battle. And Major Joel Elliott, who's on your sheet, he rode after a group of Cheyenne Indians who had fled the battle. He took off after them to try to contain them. So as the battle's going, a group of Cheyenne Indians flee. Major Joel Elliott takes off to try to bring them back. And that, after several hours, Custer was ready to leave the battle site, and Elliott had not returned. So Custer chose to leave him. Okay, left him. Several hours went by, and there was still no sign of Elliott and his 18 soldiers that he took with him, by the way. And finally, Custer sent out a search party and found nothing. Never did find it. So, how do you think that went over with some of the men that, first of all, he didn't wait for him to return, and second of all, Custer waited several hours before he sent anyone after Elliott? What's the creed of the military? Never leave a fallen soldier behind. You just don't do that. Well, some of his men were very upset with Custer's action concerning Major Elliott. And one guy in particular was really angry, Captain Frederick Benteen, which is on your sheet. And I mentioned the fact that Captain Frederick Benteen was the most upset because these two are going to have poor relationships right up to and through the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So Benteen openly criticized his superior officer for his lack of effort in supporting Major Elliott. They became less than friends, I would tell you. And they bickered back and forth all the time. They had a very poor relationship, Benteen and Custer, and this will affect events from this point on through the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which will happen later. Now, what's the big military campaign that the government is planning for to put the end of the Indian problem away forever? What's the name of it, Lane? The name of it. What's the name of this military action they're going to prepare for? It's a big name. You can't forget it. It's pretty important. What is this campaign going to be called to put the Indians in their place forever? The campaign of 1876. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you about some preparations for the campaign of 1876, then we're going to dig into it so you understand what it was. Now, By the time they were making plans for the campaign of 1876, Custer was to command his own column. Now, a column isn't a cavalry. What's a column? The Dakota column is what he was scheduled to campaign or to command in the campaign of 1876. What's under a column? What's under the Dakota column? Several cavalries, including the 7th. So he's not only going to be the commander of the 7th, he's scheduled to be the commander, overall commander of the Dakota column, which you'll understand in a minute, which has several companies and cavalries under it. Yeah. What? Custer, yeah. So he gets back, Matt, right? Sheridan gets him back, right? He has the big victory at Washita, he gets his reputation back, and prior to this campaign, Custer's scheduled to command the entire Dakota column, which has several units under it, including the 7th Cavalry. Well, just before the campaign, Custer was called back to Washington to testify in a trial. Okay, this is really important. So before the campaign of 1876 commences, Custer gets called back to Washington, D.C. to testify at a trial. Okay, he's a witness at a trial. And the trial concerned Secretary of War W. Belknap. That's who he was testifying at that man's trial. So Secretary of War, now today we call it Secretary of Defense, big position. But the Secretary of War at that time was W. Belknap, and he was on trial for a crime. And Custer had to go back there and testify. What was Belknap accused of? Making illegal monies in the Indian country. Well, how would you make illegal monies in the Indian country if you're Secretary of War? What? Selling them firearms for profit, keeping the money, those types of things. There was a big scandal going around the Secretary of War, Belknap, because people had accused him of making personal money in Indian areas by selling goods and keeping the money. Now, guess who was in cahoots with Belknap? Who was?
Custer.
No, he's testifying. We're going to get the right place. Who do you think?
Frederick.
Who?
Frederick.
No, not good guess though. That's a good guess. Benteen, no. Guess who's in cahoots with Belknap? Orville Grant.
Nah.
Who's Orville Grant?
President.
The president's brother. So President Grant's brother is also implicated in this crime. And Custer is going to testify on what he knows about Belknap from his experiences with Belknap on the Indian and frontier. Okay? So Custer gave testimony. He's required to do that by law. And you get up there and you put your hand on the Bible and you say, I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. You can't lie, or you're under perjury. Well, Custer testified, and his testimony was damning to both Belknap and Orville Grant. So who was really upset at Custer?
Then the president?
What?
The president?
The president was really pissed at him. Okay? So, he was so mad at him that he stripped Custer of the what? Dakota column in the upcoming campaign of 1876. Stripped him of the entire leadership role and relieved him of his duties, said he couldn't even go on the campaign. So President Grant is so upset at Custer because he testified against his brother that he strips him not only of the Dakota column command, but also says you are relieved of your duties and you're not even going to be part of it in any way, shape, or form. Does that matter?
Isn't that illegal?
Well, probably then it would be not so much today. They'd pay a little more attention to that. Well, Custer is crushed. They give the Dakota column command to General Alfred Terry, who's on your sheet. So they give the Dakota command to Alfred Terry, who's a general. But Terry's not a military fighter, he's a pencil pusher. What's a pencil pusher? He does paperwork great. He runs an office great. How well will he be in the field fighting Indians? Maybe not so great. So Alfred Terry, a general, is given the command of the Dakota column. Custer is desperate. So Custer makes arrangements to meet with Terry. to see if he can help him in any way. So Custer meets with General Alfred Terry and pleads with him to let him go. Let me go with you. Let me go be part of the Dakota column. Terry didn't even really want to go. Now, would Terry be in favor of Custer going with him? You bet he would, because Custer's a fighter. He's an Indian fighter. Terry is not. He was, I don't know if excited is the right word, but he was very eager to have Custer go. The problem was, he didn't have enough pull with the president to put him in underneath him, in his command. Now, who bailed Custer out the first time when he got in trouble? Philip Sheridan, right? Who's going to bail him out this time? Who's going to talk to the president and convince President Grant to let Custer go with Terry as one of his lower commanders? Who? One more time? No, that's a good guess. Who are the two generals we've talked about?
Sherman.
Sherman. General Sherman now is going to go to the president, and he says, let Custer be part of the campaign. Don't let him be a commander, but let him be part. Does Grant say okay? Grant does. And in May of 1876, Custer rejoined the 7th Cavalry at Fort Lincoln in the Dakota Territory. That's where Terry's column is. The Dakota column is stationed at Fort Lincoln in the Dakota Territory. And Custer gets permission to rejoin and be part of the Dakota column under General Terry. So he rejoins the column and rejoins the 7th Cavalry. Does everybody understand that pretty clearly? Okay, now we're going to get into the big one. This is your new sheet. This is the military campaign of 1876. This is kind of an interesting story. I want you to totally understand this, because if you do not understand this, you will never understand the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And I'm not sure if you're going to get that in your history classes or whatever, because you've got different grade levels here. But if you decide to study this a little bit on your own, I don't have enough of these.
Want me to make some copies?
Yeah, would you take hers and make about 5? I'm not sure I got enough of these either. We must have got some more kids in here.
You want me to make some more of them now?
Yeah, I'm gonna need, holy smokes. Yeah, it looks like I do, but I don't. Could you make me about what?
10 more?
5 of each one of these. Okay, Ms. Staley will bring you back an ID sheet, but I'll let you know. Lane, you're the only one that doesn't have one, and then you don't have one either, Steph. Okay. All right. The campaign of 1876 was to involve the following commanders. Okay, you should know one already. Who's one? No. Well, kind of. Huh? Who's going to lead the Dakota column? General Terry. So the first part of the military campaign of 1876 is the Dakota column commanded by General Alfred Terry. You need to know this. You need to write this down. Where are they stationed? Fort Lincoln. Now you know where Bismarck, North Dakota is by any chance?
Yeah.
That's where Fort Lincoln was, if you look at it now. So the first part of this military campaign to put an end to the Indian problem begins with General Alfred Terry, commander of the Dakota column. He's stationed at Fort Lincoln in the Dakota Territory near present-day Bismarck, North Dakota. Okay? That's the first commanding unit.
What happened to the Belknap and the Oliver's brother?
Guilty.
Wouldn't they actually do it?
So the president's give him back to
Okay, the second part of this campaign was called the Wyoming column. The Wyoming column. And it was commanded by General George Crook, who's on your ID sheet. And if you don't have a sheet, maybe look on your neighbors till she gets back.
Where were they?
George Crook. They were stationed near present-day Douglas, Wyoming at Fort Fetterman, who was named after Captain Fetterman, who was killed. So the second part of this three-prong attack on the Indians will be the Wyoming column, commanded by General George Crook. They were stationed at Fort Fetterman, which was at that time located near present-day Douglas, Wyoming. I haven't given those others out, I'll give them out at the end, but just so they get an ID sheet.
Okay.
And the third and final prong of this three-pronged attack is the Montana column. The Montana column.
Is this like it?
That's the third. We give you three. We give you Dakota column, Wyoming column, and now the Montana column. The commander of the Montana column was Colonel John Gibbon, who's on your sheet. And he was out of Fort Ellis, E-L-L-I-S, which is near present-day Bozeman, Montana.
What was his name?
John Gibbon, on your sheet. So, here are the three prongs again. Make sure you get them down. Dakota column, commanded by General Alfred Terry, stationed at Fort Lincoln, near present-day Bismarck, North Dakota. The Wyoming column, commanded by General George Crook, stationed at Fort Fetterman, near present-day Douglas, Wyoming. And the final three-prong of this attack is the Montana column, commanded by Colonel John Gibbon, that was stationed at Fort Ellis, E-L-L-I-S, near present-day Bozeman, Montana. Now, these three men were in three different locations. And just kind of stay on the first page here of this for now. These three men were in three different locations. And to accomplish their goal, they had to find a central meeting place to discuss strategy on what they were going to do to put an end to this Indian problem. And the place they decided to meet was on a steamship called the Far West. Steamship called the Far West. I'm going to give this one to you, and you can share a minute with her, and vice versa. She's going to go make another copy. But just look at that first page, and you can see exactly where those particular prongs are. Now, the Far West steamship was docked in the mouth of Rosebud Creek on the Yellowstone River in Montana. And if you open up your sheet I just gave you, you can see where I've got a little bit of an arrow pointing to where that is. Kind of a simple little drawing. And the next page has some pictures of Terry, Crook, and Gibbon. The next page has some people we'll be talking about later, so concentrate on the first two pages. You can see Crook coming from Fort Fetterman, you can see Gibbon coming from Fort Ellis, and you can see Terry coming from Fort Lincoln on that diagram. And they're all going to meet in the middle at the mouth of Rosebud Creek near the Yellowstone River in Montana on a steamship called the Far West. And what they're going to do when they meet is discuss military strategy on how they're going to take care of this Indian problem. So, let's kind of tell you what each man was equipped with. Colonel Gibbon left on March 17, 1876 with a force of 450 men. Colonel Gibbon left Montana, Fort Ellis, on March 17, 1876, and he had 450 men with him. Terry, who also, remember, had Custer with him, left on the same day, May 17, 1876, from Fort Lincoln with a force of 900 men. 900. So Gibbon has 450 men, and Terry has 900, including Custer. Right here, Tenray needs one. Oh, okay. All right, and yes. May 17th. Yep. And Crook left in mid-June of 1876 from Fort Fetterman with 1,200 men. So how many men do they have together if your math is any good? Almost how many? So they got 1,200 and 900 is how much? 2,100 and 450? How many? A little over 2,500 men. Okay, so are they going to be short like Fetterman was? No. Okay, let's talk about departure from Fort Lincoln. It was kind of interesting. See if you're how smart you are. I've got a feeling Lane will get this, because he's a thinker. Now, I told you that General Terry's command departed from Fort Lincoln on March. I screwed you up. That's why you asked that, didn't you? Actually, Gibbon left March 17th, and Custer left May 17th. Sorry. Let me rephrase that because I screwed up. Gibbon left March 17th, Terry left May 17th, Crook left mid-June. Now, when Terry's command departed on May 17th, they traveled and camped the first night. And here's what happened. They, instead of paying the soldiers at Fort Lincoln before they left the night before, they paid the soldiers at the night on the first camp. Why? Why did they wait till they got them camped before they paid them? Usually you get paid at the fort. Well, they didn't pay them the night before they left. They paid them the night after they left and camped the first night. Why is that? Lane, come on, tell me why. You're a young man. Why would I not pay you the night before?
So then leave.
What?
So then leave.
Well, not leave so much. You were going to leave because he'd kill you. Well, what might you do as a young man in Fort Lincoln if I gave you your money the night before we left? Huh?
Beer.
You'd get drunked up. You'd go get all liquored up. What else would you do if you were a single young man? Huh?
Find a girl.
You'd buy prostitutes. That's what you do. That's what they did in the army. So Custer, he wanted his men fresh and ready to go, not hung over and have to go try to find them or punish them if they weren't ready. So he knew if he gave them their money the night before, they'd go buy liquor and prostitutes. And he didn't want that. So that's why they waited till the first night of camp to pay him. Now, it was kind of unusual because the officers' wives were allowed to travel with them the first day. So Custer's wife, Libby, and other officers' wives actually rode with the Dakota column the first night and stayed overnight, said goodbye to their husbands the next morning, and they went back to Fort Lincoln. Okay? So again, during the first camp, the soldiers were paid. The officers paid the soldiers after they left Fort Lincoln because they did not want the soldiers to have their money at Fort Lincoln where they would buy whiskey and prostitutes and probably not be in their best shape for the campaign. Again, the wives of officers were allowed to ride the first camp and stay overnight, then they were sent back. Okay? Let's talk about the Battle of the Rosebud, because this is really a key to this campaign. Battle of the Rosebud. Now, if you look where General Crook is on your map, and you can see he's marching northward, right, to the far west, correct? Well, when he got to the Montana-Wyoming border, and you can kind of see that on your map, he ran into a jam. Okay? And we'll kind of tell you what happened. We'll get to that in a minute. On June 16, 1876, General Crook's crew had traveled from Fort Fetterman and they were camped on Goose Creek near present-day Sheridan, Wyoming. On June 16th, they were camped on Goose Creek near Sheridan. If you ever go to Sheridan, you drive down the interstate, you'll see the sign that says Goose Creek and you'll see the creek. Okay? So General Crook marched his command toward the Montana-Wyoming border. They reached Goose Creek near present-day Sheridan, Wyoming on June 16th. They left and headed toward the Montana-Wyoming border and arrived there the morning of June 17th. So they arrive at Goose Creek the 16th, they get up in the morning and they head for the border and they hit the Montana-Wyoming border early in the morning on June 17th. Well, they kind of settled in and Crook sent some Indian scouts over a nearby ridge to observe, to see if they saw anything. All these command had Indian scouts with them and civilian scouts. besides the soldiers. So Crook rests his command and sends Indian scouts over this ridge to make sure everything's okay before they go over the ridge, okay, toward the far west. He sat down, played some cards with some fellow officers, and waited for word from the Indian scouts. Well, as he's playing cards, he hears shooting. And he's assuming the scouts are shooting at what? He's not too worried. I'll give you a hint. What are they shooting at in his mind? Buffalo, which they've done before, okay, because they needed meat along the trip. So he assumed the shooting was at buffalo. Well, pretty soon the scouts come back at a full gallop over the ridge yelling, "Sioux! Sioux! Sioux!" Well, they're going to get caught by surprise. So what happens is Crook orders Captain Anson Mills to take men and ride over the ridge and push the Sioux back until they can get themselves organized and get prepared, because they're unprepared for battle. So the Indian scouts come back over the ridge. They're yelling, "Sioux! Sioux! Sioux!" Crook pops up from his card game and he orders Captain Anson Mills to take some men and push the Indians back over that ridge, get them back over the ridge until we can get organized. Okay? And Mills does just that. Now, once he gets organized, Crook orders his command to the top of the ridge. Why? Why did he order him to the top of the ridge as soon as he got organized?
Because they didn't want to be at the bottom.
Absolutely, he didn't want to be the next Fetterman. He didn't want to be caught in the valley. So he got his soldiers on high ground on the ridge immediately. So Anson Mills' efforts in pushing the Sioux back or detaining them was very helpful and allowed Crook and the other soldiers to get organized and get to the top of the ridge where they would be safe. Well, a battle ensued in a big, big area near Busby, Montana, on what is now the Cheyenne Indian Reservation. And these guys fought in coulees, they fought on the side hills, they fought in the valleys, and this battle lasted 6 hours. 40,000 rounds of shots were fired by Crook's men, was estimated. So this was a huge battle, known as the Battle of the Rosebud. And the battle lasted 6 hours, with over 40,000 rounds fired on the part of Crook and his men. 6-hour battle. A little longer than the Fetterman battle, which lasted how long? 45 minutes. So that tells you that Crook and his soldiers must have competed pretty well, right? But it also tells you that the Indians competed well in the 6-hour battle. And usually in that type of battle, what are you going to have as a result? Kind of a, well, not really, there wasn't that many, but a stalemate. Really, when you have that long of a battle, it's going to be about a stalemate. That's what it was. Now, Crook didn't do too bad. He lost 10 men, 10 of his men were killed, and 18 were wounded. And the Indians lost 39. So there was a lot of shooting going on, but not a lot of killing, which is kind of amazing. So Crook lost 10 men dead and 18 wounded. The Indians had a force of about 1,000. So how many did Crook have again?
438.
Okay, look again.
1,200.
1,200. So it was a pretty fair battle, right? And losses are about the same. 28 dead or killed on Crook's side, 39 Indians killed. No real winner, more of a stalemate. But the key to this is, what did Crook do? Did he continue to advance to the far west to be part of the campaign?
No.
No, he did not advance. He vacated his advance and he went back to Goose Creek and camped for 3 reasons. There's 3 reasons why he did this. Why? Give me some. Why didn't he continue on like he was supposed to?
His men were tired.
No, not so much tired. It don't matter in those days. What?
He didn't have supplies.
What type of supplies?
Ammo.
Ammo. He ran out of ammunition. Shot 40,000 rounds. Ran out of ammunition. What might be another reason he retreated and went and camped? He had to take care of
His men.
the 18 that were wounded. So he had wounded to care for, and he also had no ammunition. And when his advance, think about this, what is his advance to the far west going to take him through?
Sioux territory.
What, correct topography-wise?
Um,
Black Hills.
Valleys. and he did not want to take a chance with no ammunition and 18 wounded men to try to go in those valleys and get to the far west. Those are the three reasons why he halted his advance and went back to Goose Creek.
If there was Tad and Sioux,
What's that?
if he was just fighting Tad and Sioux, they're probably still there.
Yeah, that's right. They only lost 39, so they got 900, and what is it, 61 left. Now, Crook and his command spent the next 8 days, June 17th through June 25th, camped on Goose Creek. Just for history's sake, I'm getting ahead of the game, Custer was annihilated on the 25th. You know what Crook's men were doing the day that Custer was annihilated and were way ahead of the game? They caught over 100 fish on Goose Creek. They were fishing. So Crook, the day that Custer is annihilated, which we'll get to, Crook, who was supposed to provide support, and his men were fishing, caught over 100 fish. Now, Crook never did have to explain his actions. He never suffered any consequences. What do you think Crook should have had? What should Crook have done, in your mind, knowing the outcome today? What do you think he should have done? Now think about it. He's got 18 soldiers wounded. He's had 10 killed. He's got no ammunition. What do you think he probably should have done? He should have sent a messenger to Terry and told him he wasn't coming. But he did not do that. Okay, that probably would have been the thing to do, was to send a messenger. Okay, he did not do that. Now, you ever heard the Indian grapevine? What do you think the Indian grapevine is? What's that?
The Indians have.
The what?
Their banking system.
No, Indian grapevine. I heard it through the grapevine. I heard through the grapevine. You're working it for my. I heard, well, chocolate. Sorry. Heard through the grapevine that you were dating Johnny Jones. I heard through the grapevine that you might pass summer school. What is the grapevine?
Messaging system.
It's kind of a messaging system by what mainly though? Is it fact lots of times? A lot of times it's rumors. Okay, maybe sometimes it's fact. Well, through the Indian grapevine, news of this great victory at the Battle of the Rosebud got out. And it got out to Indians that were not involved in the Battle of the Rosebud. And so these Indians got great confidence, and who did they join up with to kick some butt now that they had already kicked a little butt already? Who are they joining up with to kick some big time butt later? The Sioux, commanded by Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull's warrior force doubled after the Battle of the Rosebud. Indian warriors that were on their own, that were just roaming the country, joined Sitting Bull's band of Sioux and Cheyenne, and his force doubled after the Battle of the Rosebud. Because of the great victory, it wasn't really a great victory, but you know, rumors go, right? How the great victory at the Battle of the Rosebud, it was expounded upon, it was exaggerated, but yet it gave the Indians confidence, and what they do, they joined Sitting Bull, and now he's going to have twice the number of warriors that he did before. Well, we'll talk about that. Okay, let's talk about the meeting on the far west, and then we're going to take a little break. Meeting on the far west. So, who gets where they're supposed to get? Gibbon and Terry. And Custer's with Terry. They get to the far west, and they arrive. Well, let me back up a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. What is Custer's role with right now with Terry? He's just along. Has he got any command? Did Grant give him a command? No. Well, again, on the morning of June 21st, 1876, prior to the meeting on the far west, what did General Terry do? Of what? Terry gave Custer command of the 7th Cavalry. Grant probably wouldn't have been happy about that, but Terry was no fighting man. And he wanted an experienced fighter to lead the best of the best. And the 7th Cavalry was considered the best of the Dakota column. So the morning of June 21st, 1876, before meeting on the far west, General Terry gave Custer command of the 7th Cavalry. At that time, the 7th Cavalry consisted of 650 soldiers. Okay? Now when I told you they left from Fort Lincoln, how many did they have with them? Look back in your notes, how many they have with them? How many?
I can't remember.
900?
900. So 450 of those men were with the 7th Cavalry, Custer now commanded. Okay? Now, here are some of the key members of the 7th Cavalry that are with Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. So he was given the rank of Lieutenant Colonel prior to the campaign. Okay? Here's some people. See if they ring a bell. Captain Tom Custer's with him, right? Who's he? His brother. Lieutenant James Calhoun, we've talked about him. Who was he? His brother, brother-in-law. Okay? Another lieutenant by the name of W.W. Cook is with him. And if you go through your handout I gave you, like Sierra's doing, you'll see the picture of some of these people. Cook was known for his really wild sideburns. You can see him. It's in your handout I gave you. W.W. Cook. Captain Miles Keogh was with the 7th Cavalry. These are all names on your sheet. Captain G.W. Yates was with Custer. Major Marcus Reno was with Custer. How about this one? Captain Frederick Benteen was with Custer. How good they getting along? Yeah. So, here are the military personnel of note. Captain Tom Custer, his brother. Lieutenant James Calhoun, his brother-in-law. Lieutenant W.W. Cook. Captain Miles Keogh. Captain G.W. Yates. Major Marcus Reno. Captain Frederick Benteen. Who else is with him that we talked about before that are civilians? Who else is with him? No, come on, you guys got to retain this better than that. What did I tell you about Custer in the biography? What? Audie Reed, his nephew's with him. And who else? Boston Custer, his brother. Remember I talked about how important family was with these guys? I told you they had died with him. So he's also got his brother, Boston Custer, and his nephew, Audie Reed, with him. Okay? So after Custer is given control of the 7th Cavalry, Terry, Gibbon, and Custer have a conference aboard the steamship the Far West, which is under the command of Grant Marsh, who's on your sheet. Grant Marsh is the commander of the Far West. And if you go through that handout I gave you, you can see a picture of Grant Marsh and you see a picture of the Far West. So, Terry, Gibbon, and Custer meet for strategy on the Far West under the command of Grant Marsh. Where's Crook? He's supposed to be there. Where's he? On Goose Creek in Sheridan. Now, what do you think, before we take a break, what did they need to find out? What were they discussing? They're there to put an end to the Indian problem forever. By force, right?
What's their weakness?
What's that?
What's their weakness?
Well, that's a good guess, but they got to find something out before that. What don't they know?
The land.
They know the land pretty good. What don't they know? For sure. Well, they certainly don't know that, but what before that don't they know?
Know where they're going to find
Where are they? They have no idea. The location of the Native Americans that they're going to battle, they have no idea where they're at. So the first order of business was to discuss where do we think these hostile Indians are. Now, Crow Indian scouts were helping the government locate the Indians. Why were Crow Indian scouts helping the military? They are enemies of the Sioux and Cheyenne. So Crow scouts were hired to help these columns find the Indians. Now the scouts met with General Terry during this conference, and they thought that the hostile Indians were in one of two places. Okay? They were either by Rosebud Creek in Montana, which was pretty close to where the Far West was, right? Because it was docked in the mouth of Rosebud Creek, the mouth meaning where Rosebud Creek ran into the Yellowstone River, or they thought they were on the Little Bighorn River. So scouts, Crow scouts told Custer, Gibbon, and Terry that these Indians are in one of two locations. They're either on Rosebud Creek or they're on the Little Bighorn River. So General Terry knew the approximate location of the tribes. But what didn't he know, Garrett?
How many there were?
How many there were. He had no idea. He wasn't even close. He did not know that the Sioux and Cheyenne had combined forces to create the largest Indian fighting force in American history. Okay? When you come back after your break, we'll tell you what military strategy they had after they found out where they were. Okay? 10 minutes.
You put me in the clothes, that's
I
all
didn't
it
do it.
was.
I didn't
Did
do
you
it.
pause it?
Just so you know, it's here first, and then
Anybody pause it?
and then it's this page,
I'll do it.
and the back's like a blank.
Might not say.
There it was.